takes a minute to get going.
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. I think technically, due to open meeting law and the fact that we most certainly have a quorum of some committee or another, we're probably obligated to record this.
Probably. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep track of who's on and who's not, but it's being recorded anyway, and we'll put it up on the website for folks to see it. Okay, well, it's 7:01, so let's start this meeting for the folks that are joining in. Thank you very much. I really appreciate folks taking the time to understand what we're doing here at CVFiber. That's really important to us. And before I start, I have a 10-slide presentation I'd like to walk through, and then we can have open discussions, questions, whatever comes up. But before we go there, I'd like whomever is a CVFiber board member or committee member to introduce themselves, and I'll ask Janelle to introduce herself and start, and then just let others go and introduce themselves if you're on the board or one of the committee members for CVFiber. Go ahead, Janelle, please.
Hi, I'm Janelle. I'm the executive director of CVFiber, and I'm very glad to be here.
Chuck, I see you have your hand up.
Yep. Hello, everyone. Chuck Burt, delegate from the town of Moortown, as well as chair of the communications committee. Thank you for joining us this evening.
John, would you like to go next? I see you there.
I'm John Walters. I'm the vice chair of the communications committee. And I will be fading into the background so I can take notes and eat my dinner at the same time without making anybody else hungry.
All right, and I see Alan is on. Alan, would you introduce yourself? Alan, you're on mute, it appears. Well, I'm going to speak for Alan. He has very poor internet, by the way. Alan Gilbert is the delegate from Worcester, and he is also the chair of our policy committee. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And let's see if this works. No, I don't want PowerPoint live. Thank you. That is not what I want. I'm gonna, let's see if I open that and then go here and share my screen. There we go. I'm going to go into slideshow mode. All right.
Looking good.
Thank you. Yeah, let's start from the beginning here. Again, my name is Jerry Diamantidis. I am the chair of the governing board of CVFiber, and I am extremely pleased to make this presentation today, and maybe reveal, take the blanket off of some of the mystery of what is CVFiber and what we're doing. I know that the questions that are out there are, when am I going to get my internet and what is it going to cost? And we will discuss those issues, but I think it's really important for folks to have some understanding of who we are and what we're doing. And I'm going to also mention, and I hope folks will bear with me here, because we are a public entity. This is a public meeting. At the same time, we are engaging in contract negotiations with multiple contractors. We have some business sensitive information that I may know but not be able to reveal. I will be as transparent tonight as I possibly can. If there's something that is business sensitive that comes up as a question, I will say so. I mean, we have already provided our universal service plan in a redacted form, and we've also provided our business plan in a redacted form to members of the public who have asked for it. But we do need to be careful about sharing information that may be sensitive, especially to the contract negotiations that we have coming up. So with that, I'd like to begin walking through these slides. I believe I have 10 slides, and let's just make sure everybody understands who we are and what we're doing. Of course, we are a communications union district. What's extremely important to know about CVFiber and the other CUDs is that we take no tax dollars from the towns. We have no taxing authority, and we do not get tax revenues from the towns. We are dependent on grants, we are dependent on loans, we are dependent on subscriber funds, but we get no tax dollars from the towns. We are a municipal entity with a single purpose, and that purpose is to bring high-speed internet, reliable, affordable, 100 up, 100 down, high-speed broadband throughout our district. And we are pursuing that goal in a single-minded manner. But there's a challenge to doing that, and one of the challenges is our 21 towns have approximately 25,000 addresses and almost 1,500 miles of roadway where utility poles are carrying either electricity or communications. But out of that 25,000, 14,000 addresses are unserved and underserved, and that runs for about 1,100 miles. So the issue here is that almost half of our addresses are in about a 250 to 300 mile roadway stretch that is already being served with relatively high-speed internet or even fiber internet. And those areas are really off base for us right now because we are providing service to the underserved. So we are forced, if you will, to develop a business plan and a universal service plan that focuses on the rural areas of our district, which have a low population density.
Jerry, you have a question from a guest. Would you like to ask to hold questions to the end, or do you want to take them as they come in?
Oh, thank you, Chuck. I would really prefer to take questions at the end, so I can walk through. It's a relatively short presentation, so please hold that question and we'll get back to it.
Tracy, please do keep your virtual hand up, and we will get to you as soon as Jerry completes this portion of the presentation. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Chuck, for doing that. What I see here is a very small window of participants, and I don't see that folks have their hands up. So
sorry, that was our toddler. Sorry.
That's okay. So CVFiber's challenge there is to provide high-speed internet in a high-cost, difficult area to provide that service. And the reason that we exist is because the commercial entities have not provided that service. And the reason they're not providing that service is because it's really not commercially viable. You would have to charge too much to be able to support the construction and the maintenance in CVFiber's mountainous and low density terrain, low population density terrain. So this is a real challenge for CVFiber. It's a challenge for many of the other CUDs, if not all of the other CUDs, is to bring fiber service to areas where it's very difficult to bring fiber service. Nonetheless, we're doing it, and we're meeting this challenge. And there's a number of factors that allow us to do this and support our doing this. And the first is that as a municipal entity, we don't need to provide shareholder profits, right? We need to be sustainable. We need to provide reliable and affordable service, but we don't need to meet quarterly phone calls with shareholders, right? We just need to get that service out there and do it in a reliable way that's affordable. We need to be good stewards of this public infrastructure that we're building. We also, to help support meet this challenge, we are phenomenally fortunate to have American Recovery Plan Act ARPA funds that are, it appears, will be approximately half of the cost of our construction, a little bit less, will be provided through ARPA funds, which is extremely good fortune for CVFiber and for the folks in Central Vermont, because that takes a real burden off of the subscriber fees. And we are also pursuing additional grant opportunities to support the remaining 50% or 55% or so of the construction cost. We're looking to get as much of that supported by grants as well. All of this is to reduce the subscription fees, because affordable service is equally important to the level of service and equally important to the reliability of the service. Another benefit that helps us meet the challenge is that a large portion of the work that's being done for CVFiber is through volunteers. Thousands of hours of volunteer work, high quality, I would say professional volunteer work is on a regular basis being provided to CVFiber, which is saving us many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and will by the time we're built out, will have saved millions of dollars for CVFiber. And then the other factor that we're leveraging to meet the challenge is that we have excellent state and local partners. The Vermont Community Broadband Board, otherwise known as VCBB, is extremely supportive to all of the CUDs and is providing needed guidance and guidelines on how to negotiate the federal ARPA funds, and is also helping us in coordination with the Vermont CUD Communication Union District Association, also known as VCUDA. Between the Community Broadband Board and VCUDA, we're able to coordinate and make materials purchases as a larger entity than as individual CUDs, and we've seen the benefits of that, and we've already made some purchases in coordination with VCUDA. That's extremely important. They also help us understand legislation that's coming up, so that we know how and what to talk with our representatives about. They're extremely helpful. We also partner with CVFiber, who is the CUDs to our south, and NEK Broadband, which is the CUD to our north. We coordinate them. We coordinate and collaborate with them on numerous items, and particularly we will be sharing our redundancy with them, and we're even in the process of coming to agreements on certain areas within our CUD may be better served, more effectively and efficiently served by one of our adjacent CUDs, and vice versa, and we're working out the issues to make that happen, so that we're reducing the cost of service to our subscribers. We also have partnerships with Washington Electric Co-op. We've been working with them since our inception. We currently house some of our fiber on their property, and we're very thankful for that. And we have a very good relationship in our pole information. We've shared pole inventory information with WEC, and we are coordinating with them on all of the make-ready ride-outs, and I'll talk more about these items later. But down in the weeds and on the ground, we're coordinating with WEC now on a daily basis. The last of our partners that I'll mention here is Waitsfield Champlain Valley Telecom. They will be providing our service. Our internet service will be provided by Waitsfield. They are a long-term Vermont company. They've been providing telecom services for over 70 years, and they have their own fiber internet service that they provide, and they will be expanding their operation in order to provide our CVFiber's internet service. And they also are currently and will in future provide NEK broadband service. So we are all trying to work together to the extent that we can, so that we are saving money, we hope, and saving time, we hope, and making some of these better decisions collaboratively rather than in a vacuum. So in meeting this challenge, we have come up with a plan, and I'd like to walk through this plan very quickly and drill down into the details as we go from the 30,000 foot view to the 20,000 foot view to the 10,000 foot view. So let me start at 30,000 feet. We've been through a high level design, and we've created 24 distribution areas. That is where CVFiber will begin providing our internet service. And these distribution areas are not determined by town borders. They are determined by design requirements, engineering constraints, basically how far can the light signal go before it loses its power. And that is a major factor in determining these distribution areas. Typically, there are multiple distribution areas that will work off of a single outside light terminal or a cabinet or multiple cabinets. And for the most part, towns are served by multiple distribution areas. So a distribution area might have a part of Calais in it, might have part of East Montpelier in it, might have part of Worcester in it, might have part of Woodbury in it. Another distribution area, might very well have a part of Washington, a part of Williamstown, and a part of Orange, because this all goes by geography and engineering requirements. But each of these DAs is being, we have an overall design that each DA fits into, and then down into the weeds, each DA is designed individually for the requirements for those OLTs, for those terminals, and for the engineering requirements for that area. Our system-wide detailed design will be complete this coming May, and we have our first DAs where the design will be complete will be this August. Did I just lose my sharing? Can you folks see my screen?
Not anymore.
No.
How's that? I think it's back. And so our 30-foot perspective on this plan, we have 24 distribution areas, but we're going to move through them one at a time. We're going to construct, we're going to test, and we're going to light. So as we go, we're going to be lighting distribution areas. So over time, we'll start with 1, and then eventually we'll have 3, and then 7, and then 14, until we get to 24 distribution areas constructed, tested, and lit with service. So we are going to provide internet service as we go, and we're considering this light as we go. But let's drill down a little bit more into what needs to happen for this overview of the plan to be effective. We need equipment providers, and we need construction contractors. We have an RFP that we're evaluating responses right now for equipment providers. One of the important things about the equipment we need is that there are some very long lead times, up to as much as 40 weeks from when you put in an order. And we have already put in an order and are receiving fiber, and we are ready, scheduled by the end of this week, hopefully to put in an order for our first cabinets to make sure that when our construction begins, that we actually have a couple of cabinets to light, even though we're going to need maybe, over a dozen cabinets. We don't need a dozen now. We will need a couple this fall.
And Jerry, I'm no longer seeing the presentation.
Sorry, please continue.
Sorry, Jerry, this is Chuck. I'm no longer seeing the presentation. I don't know if that's happening to other folks, but what I'm seeing is weird.
What you're seeing is weird. Okay, let me try sharing again. Sorry. Let's try again and see if that got lost. Are you seeing the presentation now?
I am.
Okay, sorry. Equipment providers, construction contractors. We have an RFP on the street for construction contractors that is due the end of the month. Some of the key concerns that we have with our construction contractors is that we are concerned about the availability of the skill levels required, and we're concerned about housing for contractors. Because CVFiber is certainly not the only CUD in Vermont that is looking for contractors now, and plans to deploy them over the next couple of years. So there's going to be a strain on some resources that we're going to have to deal with, and that we're working with collaboratively with others to see about both meeting the skill levels and figuring out housing issues for our contractors that'll be working here over the next couple of years. But let's drill down some more. Let's drill down to the 10,000 foot level. We had talked about the equipment that we're going to require. Well, that equipment needs to be warehoused, and that inventory needs to be managed. And we are currently looking at warehouse opportunities. There is a scarcity of warehouses in Vermont right now, especially in our area. But we are looking to share with other CUDs. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow we'll be looking at a specific location where we are looking to share with a fellow CUD, share the space, and maybe even share some of the inventory if it makes sense. But also we recognize that multiple facilities may be required because we do want to reduce the road time for the construction crews that are going to need to go back and forth from these warehouse facilities, pick up the materials that they need, and then get out in the field to do the construction and to do the lighting of the fiber that's been laid. So we will be looking at multiple facilities. Inventory management is a key component of this because there are over 100 items, different items that need to be stocked, distributed, and then restocked so that we're not at a loss for materials as we're moving through our construction program. So we are, in our evaluation of the RFPs, we're talking very specifically with the prospective contractors about assisting us in managing this inventory, as well as making sure that restocking is performed on a timely manner. And again, digging down a little bit into the weeds at the 10,000 foot level, in order to perform construction, we need permits, we need easements, and we've already begun getting our permits. We've already started negotiating the easements that we're going to need in our first construction areas, even though we don't even have a construction contractor on board yet. We're also doing what's known as make ready. We're coordinating with the utilities to determine what level of work may or may not need to be done to a utility pole or to the space between the utility poles in order for the construction crews to come in and hang their fiber unencumbered. So we're already working on make ready. The one thing we can't work around, we have to work with for sure, is the weather. And we recognize that we're going to be starting construction relatively late into the construction season. So that construction is going to start hopefully in the fall. Probably there'll be a construction hiatus, and then construction will pick up again as mud season allows. Our intention, hopefully, is that we will have enough fiber laid and enough of our hardware constructed that during the winter we'll be able to do installations and actually light homes. That's our intention. We will see how that goes. But let's drill a little bit more down into the plan, down at the ground level. I want folks to understand that each one of these distribution areas, and what you're looking at here right now is the Calais 01 distribution area and a little bit of the Marshfield 01 distribution area. The design goes house by house. We are looking at every residence, and we are looking at the service that they already have, their served, their unserved or underserved status, and are, of course, with the ARPA funds, we are only providing to the underserved. In order to do that, though, sometimes you need to pass by served areas. We're looking to minimize bypassing served addresses, but there will be some where, you know, you're going down Route 12, you have to go down Route 12, there's no other way to get there. We're going to bypass some areas that are already served. But our distribution areas actually have what we call the donut hole in the ring of 24 distribution areas. Has two major holes. One is pretty much in the center where the town of Montpelier, a large part of East Montpelier and Barrytown, parts of Berlin are already served with adequate internet service. Not all of those areas, but a lot of those areas. Also, part of Northfield is already served. So we're minimizing bypassing those areas, and some areas that are like Montpelier that is basically fully served is part of the donut hole. But also I want to let folks know that as we're building and as we're getting ready to light, we are going to do outreach and marketing so that folks understand when their local area is, when their address and their local area is going to be ready to be lit, and understand what the pricing structure will be. And we are we're not quite negotiating, we're talking with multiple firms that can provide this service to keep track of and perform the outreach so that folks know where the fiber is and when addresses are going to be lit, and then actually coordinate the installation scheduling so that Waitsfield Telecom can go out there and do the installation assessment and identify what needs to be done either at the home or between the pole and the home to make the installation successful and get that address lit. Waitsfield Telecom will be doing the in-house work, and we'll be doing the work from the pole to the house to get the installation complete and to get the residents lit. So there will be an outreach campaign that will be very specific, and you'll be able to punch in your address and get information as to just when you'll be able to get service. But that'll be in, when CVFiber is in that area, so that you'll be able to get on a schedule for installations. We're also going to have what we call friendlies in the industry, and those are going to be some test residences where we will be sure that everything works, make sure that everything is lit appropriately, make sure that the appropriate redundancy is in place so that if there's a failure somewhere, that the redundancy ensures that there's no hiatus in service to the residents. It'll be invisible to the user. We need to make sure all of that's in place before we start charging people. So that'll be a part of our installation and scheduling, and all this will be very visible as a part of our outreach. We want you to know we're coming. We want you to know when we're going to be on your street and when you can be a part of, be a subscriber to CVFiber. Another issue that's extremely important to us is affordability. And I had mentioned earlier that we are using town ARPA funds. Those towns that have identified that they want to share and provide some ARPA funds directly to CVFiber. There is a 100% match by the VCBB. So there are towns that have told us they are willing to provide $100,000 to CVFiber. That becomes $200,000 for CVFiber to spend specifically in that town. It appears that for the most part, we're going to be spending that money on these installations that I've been talking about. Some installations can be a little bit expensive, and the towns want to make sure that there's no initial barrier to entry for folks in their town to be able to connect. So the town ARPA funds will be used for that. And I ask you to get in touch with your town delegate and to get in touch with your select board. We have until September to get letters of commitment for these ARPA funds where there's a 100% match. And that money will go directly to your town. The money will go directly to installations, to individuals. You'll be able to know, exactly how many installations in your town were supported with ARPA funds, and we'd really like to see that happen. Also, we are going to pursue the Equal Access to Broadband initiative, where there are federal monies and state monies that are supporting those that are more income challenged in order to help pay for the subscription fee to CVFiber. So all of these things are happening at the ground level. We went from a 30,000-foot perspective to a ground level perspective of our plan, and we are in the middle of implementing everything that I've just described. So the long view of what we have to do here and what we are doing is we basically have a 4-year construction plan that's approximately 11,000 miles of fiber. We have a schedule of approximate miles and approximate distribution areas by year, but it's extremely important that folks understand that this is all quite flexible and that we're learning as we're going along, and that's not because we don't know what we're doing. That's because we're coming up with challenges that we didn't see and that couldn't be seen from the 30,000, 20,000, 10-foot perspective. As we get down to the boots on the ground perspective, we're seeing challenges that we need to adjust to. There are many risks that we know are out there, but we can't foresee the effect that those risks may have on our timing and our implementation plan. So there's lead times on equipment. The entire country is looking for fiber equipment at the same time. And of course, we have issues with the pandemic that has slowed the supply chain. We have construction crew availability that, again, the entire country is looking for the same set of labor skills at the same time. And we are in that mix. It's quite competitive. And then we also have risks with the make ready, the work that needs to be done in advance of the construction, in advance of the fiber being hung. We have a little bit more control over that. We've started make ready done, but we don't know definitively the level of make ready that's going to come upon us as we move through some areas where utility poles haven't been worked on in many years, and we will find out. But so far, our make ready has been going along very smoothly, and we have a wonderful partnership with WEC, and we also are working very well with the other utilities. But let me move on to the real question at hand here, which is, when will I get it and what will it cost? And let me I'm sure everybody's reading this on the side, but let me explain the graphic that's on there. The darker the color, the higher the density of unserved and underserved. And our purpose, as I had said earlier, is to get to the unserved and the underserved. And we have asked our designers, NRTC, the National Rural Telecom Cooperative, who has designed many systems throughout the country. We've given them this charge that we need to focus on the underserved and the unserved, and that is exactly what we're doing. And we are starting in the Calais we're starting in the distribution area that includes Calais and Woodbury and Worcester. And there are 3 distribution areas that are served off of a pair of outside line terminals. So we're starting there. And then as we continue our design and as we evaluate the engineering requirements, the redundancy requirements, and the sustainability requirements, the business sustainability requirements as we move forward, we're going to go towards Cabot and Marshfield. We're going to go towards Middlesex and Moortown. We're going to go to Orange and then reach out to Plainfield and Williamstown. This has not yet been decided because we don't have enough information at the moment to make those decisions. But we are starting in the fall of 2022 in the Calais, Woodbury, Worcester areas. There are parts of Worcester that are outside of this fall 2022 start. There's a tiny slice of East Montpelier that's actually in there it's only a few homes, but I didn't put their name up there. But this is what we're doing. We are focusing on the unserved and the underserved, and we're moving forward from this Calais, Woodbury, Cabot, Marshfield, Worcester, Middlesex, and we're going to continue to move out from 2022 to 2024 to construct and then light, construct and light as we move from distribution area to distribution area. We will be doing community outreach so that you'll know where we are and when we're coming. And we will be providing our subscription fee information at that time. It's still a little early for us to definitively say what our subscription fees are. There will be multiple service tiers. There'll be a higher fee for a higher service, a gigabyte service, for example, a lower fee for lower service, 50 up, 50 down, for example. But we will, and we are required to provide a minimum access of 100 over 100, and that service will certainly be available. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we will be offering the equal access to broadband initiative. And one additional thing I would like to add about our outreach, this is in early development. We haven't determined exactly how we're going to do this yet, but we do want to reach out to the communities and actually be in the community, perhaps at town offices or perhaps with some kind of mobile setup where you can actually sit down and talk to somebody. We can show you what 100 over 100 service looks like. We can explain what we're offering. We can explain how to set up your computer to use this. We can let you know if your computer is suitable to access the kind of services that we're talking about. We want to bring that to the towns as a part of our community outreach. That's not fully developed yet, but that is something that we want to do. I know I've been feeding people through a fire hose here. We are working very diligently and very hard to provide the service that everybody deserves and that everybody needs. We recognize that folks need this service yesterday. But 1,000 miles of internet fiber in 24 distribution areas in rural Vermont, it just takes some time. I apologize for that. I wish I could do it all tomorrow. But we do have a plan. We are implementing the plan. We do have the funds, and we will pursue the remaining funds either through loans if we must, that will increase our subscription fees, or pursue additional grants, which we are doing now, to keep those subscription fees as low as possible. I am ready to take questions. And Chuck, would it be easier if you call on folks? If you might help.
Jerry, go ahead and let me run with moderating questions for you.
Perfect.
Before we get to the questions in the chat, that we've had a few questions coming in through the chat. We've had a question come in through email. We've got someone raising their hand. But I would actually like to take a moment and provide an opportunity for the people on the phone first to ask their questions, as it's a little bit harder to get into the conversation when you are on the phone. So please, if anybody who is dialed in via the phone first, go ahead and please ask a question if you have one, or if you want, you can tell us that you will have a question a little bit later, and I'll come back to you in a bit. Anybody on the phone? Okay, one last call out for folk on the phone to ask a question.
Hello, Chuck. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hey, it's David Mannix calling. Jerry, great presentation. My question for you is, how can we help make this possible?
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Well, for one, we have committees that always need help of particular expertise. As I had mentioned, we are volunteers, with the exception of our single employee, who is also Employee of the Year, Janelle Smith, who's our executive director, but everyone else is a volunteer. Also, another thing that would be really, really helpful, and I ask this especially because this is so far out of my area of expertise, grant funding. For folks that understand where philanthropic channels are and how we can move through the philanthropic maze to get this extremely important need met. We have government funds, but for anybody that knows how to maneuver outside of government, the philanthropic world, man, that would be a real help.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. I'll get in touch with you.
That would be great. Thanks.
And I can add to that and say that if anybody wants to volunteer or get involved with CVFiber, feel free to go through our website, or you can email me directly at director@cvfiber.net. You can reach us anyway, and we can have a conversation about how your skills and your needs can fit in with what we're looking for and how we can work together.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
We have a hand up with John Walters.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if your town has not made a commitment of ARPA funds, get in touch with your elected officials. This match that Jerry talked about is available until mid-September, or when the funds run out. So, if you can convince your town to kick in $50,000, say, then that means you'll get another $50,000, $100,000, and all that money will be spent in the granting town. So if your town has not already done so, we've received commitments from 5 towns. We would appreciate your efforts in that regard.
I will add that Moortown voted just this week to join on that, and it will be our 6th town. So we are rapidly expanding the number of towns that are helping us out with ARPA funds. First question in the chat is, can you talk a bit about the possibility / likelihood, if any, that the project could halt for some reason before service gets to all communities?
Oh, that's a very good. That's a very good question. The thing that would, I mean, barring the totally unforeseen circumstances, but the risk that is out there potentially could be funding. We have grant funding secured, as I had mentioned, for almost 50% of our construction effort. But if there are not additional funds after that point in time, well, then, of course, if we had no funding, our construction would have to stop. But that's not our plan, of course. Our plan is to go out into the municipal bond world and secure bond funding. And I believe we have a very strong opportunity, a very strong chance of getting bond funding, because we will own the assets that we've constructed with the grant money that we have. And we will also have subscribers that are beginning to be on board with the funds that we have spent in the first couple of years of construction. So I don't see it halting. My biggest concern is that as interest rates rise, and if we can't find additional grant funding, that goes directly to subscription rates. And we want to keep those subscriber rates as low as possible. So I hope that addresses the question.
Thank you. Next question that's come in, I think this came in when you were showing the ground level slide. And the question is, so is the area that was highlighted for Calais the only areas being linked in, or is that just this phase?
Oh, this isn't even just this phase. It's not a random selection, but it was in alphabetical order. So this selection came up. We have a similar level of detail for all of our 24 distribution areas. And they will be designed at this level of detail for all of our distribution areas. That design will be complete next spring for all distribution areas. And then we will move through one by one, or if we're fortunate enough to have enough contractors on multiple fronts at the same time, we will begin the construction and the lighting. So no, this is meant to be purely representative. And if your town, if your road is just outside of the picture, that does not mean that we're not coming to you.
Thanks. I was like just a touch north of the area you showed. So thank you.
I can understand the sense of panic there. No, that's
Jerry, follow-on question. Could you please elaborate for on-grid versus off-grid?
Oh, absolutely. So we are accounting for off-grid areas, and they are incorporated into our design, and so that all of our sizing of materials and the number of things that we need and what we need to purchase, all of that includes off-grid areas. The significant thing about off-grid areas is that they often require underground service. Underground service is multiple times more expensive than utilizing existing utility poles. And for that reason, for our business sustainability, we're not starting by doing off-grid areas. We are starting by focusing on-grid areas so that we can build our subscriber base so that we can then go and pursue the off-grid areas. Now, not all off-grid areas are underground, but we do have that level of detail where we understand whether the utilities are above ground or underground, and the underground are exorbitantly more expensive to construct. But that doesn't mean you're not part of the plan. You certainly are if you're off-grid.
Thank you. I would like to next call on Carl Etnier, and I'm sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. Carl, please be our guest to ask your question.
Thank you, Chuck. This is Carl Etnier with the East Montpelier Select Board, and I led the effort to explain the CUD concept at town meeting some years ago, which resulted in a unanimous vote in town to join the nascent CUD, and I'm really pleased to see it coming along this far. My question is about the towns that have contributed money from their ARPA funding to CVFiber. East Montpelier is eager to do so at the select board level. We need to have a public process about how we're going to use our ARPA funding. But preliminarily, we decided back last fall that it was a good idea to target some of this money to CVFiber, and it would serve the town well. However, the last time that I've had any sort of discussions about this, we still were not satisfied that we had all the information that we needed to be assured that we would not face federal clawback of the money because CVFiber had not done exactly what they needed to do to satisfy the provisions of the funding. So I'm wondering if you can explain to us what you've done to persuade the 6 towns that have contributed ARPA funding that everything's a-okay with that.
Yeah, our understanding is that that clawback is not applicable to these funds. That's our understanding. I do not have legal expertise here, so I cannot speak from the legal perspective. But our understanding is that these funds, I believe, they need to be spent before 2025, if I remember correctly, and that the clawback is not a problem here. But let me tell you that let me make a note here, please, because I want to have a more detailed discussion with you where I can provide you the resources we use to come to that decision. So let me, and was your question in the chat, sir?
It was not, no.
Okay. So I'm making a note. Are you on the select board at East Montpelier?
That's correct.
Okay. We will get in touch with you. It may be me personally, it may be Janelle, but we will get in touch with you and we'll talk the details of this to your satisfaction, I hope.
I appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Carl. Next question coming from the chat. Does my town providing a match impact service delivery to every resident of my town?
That's a good question. I don't know the details of the individual town. I guess it really doesn't matter the name of the town. What we are doing is we're signing commitment letters with towns, and towns are signing commitment letters to us that they're committing these funds. There's a memorandum of understanding that follows that. And the commitment of the funds so far, and this seems to be pretty universal with the towns we're working with, those ARPA funds are going, as I said, to the costs of installation so that it reduces barriers to entry and just reduces the costs of getting fiber to the premise. The towns really need to decide how that money gets allocated. You know, do they want to do first come, first serve? Do they want to focus on folks that are eligible for equal access to broadband? Do they want to have a flat rate, $150 per install until the money's gone? This is something we need to work out with the towns. So the answer is it's possible that not everybody in the town would see an equal allocation of those funds. It really depends on how the towns and CVFiber determine the best way to spend those funds in the town. But the overriding answer to that is it appears that installations which are resident specific are probably the best ways to do that, because that's an outside expense, if you will, to the residents apart from their regular subscription fees. I hope that answers the question.
To add just a little bit of additional clarity there, towns are being given the opportunity to select from a number of different options on how to make sure their funds are leveraged. Some of the other ways towns could leverage those funds are wiring public buildings, for example, if there's a library or a school or a town offices that is not already on decent infrastructure. It could be leveraged to go through right-of-ways and fund those right-of-ways specifically because they're through public public town land, and that way, it's sort of a shared usage of it. But as Jerry indicated, offsetting installation fees is or has been the most popular option selected. And so there it will be a little bit dependent on the agreement that comes up with each town. Next question. Again from the chat, are new homes that are currently being built being taken into consideration for the design? Many of them have no current service available to them unless they sign contracts with providers, 1 year for consolidated DSL, please don't, and 2 years for satellite internet providers.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and the answer to that is yes. If there's known construction that's going out there, first of all, those specific locations are being included. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that we have, including those homes, we have 125% of what we know to be at this moment full build out of all the towns. So that if all the towns were to build out their available real estate, we've added 25% on top of that in our design so that things are sized accordingly in order to be able to bring service out to anything that might change 5 years from now or 2 years from now or 10 years from now. I will also add that strand and lash, which is the type of construction that we're doing, is fairly flexible. Everything that we're doing can be upgraded. We're not designing to be upgraded, but if there were areas where an unforeseen development was to come and there were, a development with 100 homes somewhere that was totally unforeseen, that can be addressed with some additional fiber and some additional hardware.
Thank you. Next question. How do I know if my address will ultimately be served? Thinking about bypass.
That's a good question. If we bypass an area and we're hanging the fiber, our intention is to provide service to those areas that we are forced to run cable through to get from one unserved area to another, or to get from our equipment to the unserved area. I use Route 12 as an example. If we have to run along Route 12 to get there because, in Vermont, You can either go 10 miles in one direction or 50 miles in 3 other directions to get to the same place, right? So we're not going to go hang 50 miles of fiber to avoid 10 miles of bypass. So if we have to do that, we will. And as a part of our outreach, if your address is in that area, we'll let you know about that, and you'll have the opportunity. But there are also areas that we are absolutely avoiding, right? That's the donut hole. And if you're in the donut hole, if you're in downtown Montpelier, we're not planning to provide fiber to that area now. We may plan for it later, and that later would be 5 years from now, but we are not planning now to bring fiber to areas that we know are fully served. It's only the incidental bypass that I'm talking about where you'll have an opportunity.
Thank you. Next question. What are the towns that have committed to match?
The towns that have committed to match, Chuck, is there any problem with identifying those? I don't think there's any problem identifying those, right?
It's in the public record of each of those towns.
Yeah,
select
right.
minutes.
Exactly. So we have Cabot, Middlesex, Waterbury, Worcester, Moortown, and we are talking with other towns as well to do that. So we have 6 towns, I believe, at the moment.
Great, thank you. What is the definition of served versus underserved in the context of addresses potentially being bypassed?
Oh, and also please let me add Calais to that list, right? Cabot, Calais, Middlesex, Waterbury, Worcester.
Yes, thank you.
Unserved and underserved. Well, unserved is basically less than 4 megabytes per second up and 1 megabyte per second down. You really have in this day and age, you have basically no internet service. You're unserved, and it may be no internet service whatsoever. Underserved comes in 2 forms. There's underserved where it's 4.1 is your service level, 4 megabits per second up, 1 down. That is terribly, terribly underserved.
Just a clarification, the reverse, 4 megabit down, 1 megabit up.
Did I say that in reverse? Thanks, Chuck. Underserved also includes 25.3, which is what a lot of DSL aspires to, but typically is unable to provide on a regular basis. So those are truly the underserved. We also are required to provide, CVFiber is required to provide 100 up, 100 down. We're required to provide access to that level of service. There's another level of service that's 100 down and 20 up that is available to some folks through the cable companies out in our distribution areas.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Could I just follow up on that, because I asked that question? This is John Demeter in Middlesex. Sure. Just so I'm super clear on this, because I don't want to fall into a loophole here. But if we're in a rural area with only DSL and we're under 25.3, we're not going to be bypassed.
No, you're not considered bypassed at all. Not at all, sir. No. Okay, no, you're our target. You are our target.
I would hope so, and you're my inspiration. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't expect that tonight.
Great. Thank you for jumping in with that clarification, John. Next question. Is the service going to be curbside only or will direct connections to homes be made? And if so, will those connections require homeowner funds? And what will be the speeds from curbside or direct connections if relevant?
Okay. For the most part, almost exclusively, we are designing for fiber to go directly to the home. An installer would come from Waitsfield Telecom and actually make the connection from the fiber that's on the pole to your house, into a router, which would support a mesh network of Wi-Fi within your house and also support a direct connection, wired connection to a computer if that's what you prefer. So it would be direct connection. The speeds will be, like I said, they'll range from 50 up, 50 down, most likely, to a gig up and a gig down. And there may be special situations where we can provide more than a gig up and a gig down, depending on your needs and your willingness to pay for the service. But everything will be hardwired, if you will, to the home. But of course, it won't be wire, it will be glass. We expect this infrastructure to last. It's at least a 50-year investment. CVFiber hopefully will be providing internet service for generations.
Excellent, thank you. We have John Walters with his hand up.
I just wanted to add that Orange is another town that has committed ARPA funds.
Thank you, John.
Great, thank you. Next question. What will the service level differences be for businesses, if any? And will there be additional services that businesses might need, such as things like static IP addresses or things of that nature, or higher level service level agreements?
Absolutely, all of that will be available to businesses. That is something that we know is very important to provide, and we will be very flexible in providing the level of service that whatever your business is will require. Yes, there's quite a bit of opportunity there for us to provide a tailored service to businesses.
Fantastic. That wraps the questions that I've seen. So I guess at this point, consider this a last call if you have any additional burning questions. And we have a hand up already. Bob, please go ahead.
Yes, hello. We live on Lower Road in Plainfield, and the booming speed of Consolidated when it's working is 7, a little less than 7 download and 0.6, 0.7, 0.8 sometimes upload. So as opposed to downtown Plainfield, which is probably one of your donut holes that has Spectrum available, and that is pretty robust in service. So the town offices are served by that, but not out in the willywags. So I just wanted to, and there are promises, rumors, whatever, that Consolidated is fixing to install fiber. Have you heard anything of that nature?
Well, I have not heard about Consolidated going to Lower Road in Plainfield. Our intention is your residence is on our map. I can tell you that for sure. I don't know if Consolidated is going to get there first or not. We do have to overbuild, if you will, in the downtown Plainfield area to get to your residence and others. You're almost on the map there. That's on the picture here. So you will have the opportunity to have service from CVFiber. If Consolidated gets there first, I don't know what to tell you about that. But your residence is definitely in our sites and in our plans, and we will be overbuilding to get to you. It's a necessity, but that's a perfect example, actually, sir, where you are on Lower Road. You know, we have to come off of Route 2. That's how else are you going to get there? So that's part of the overbuild. But then, you know, we get up into the hills, and then in between the hills and into the valleys where nobody goes. We're going to provide internet to everyone in there. Or provide access anyway, I should say. It'll be up to you whether or not you want to subscribe.
Yeah. Good to
Thank you,
know.
Bob.
Thanks for the answer.
Excellent. Next question. This may be a little early for this question, but will IPv6 be available?
IPv6. You know, I am not technically savvy enough to know that answer. I have heard discussions about 4 and then the transition into 6, and I simply don't have the answer. We are working. Our design can certainly handle it. I mean, the infrastructure design, it's really up to, I believe, Waitsfield Telecom and when and how they make that transition. And I don't have the answer to that. I apologize for not knowing the answer. But if your name is in the chat, if there's a way that we can get to you, we can get an answer. We can get an answer to you. I can bring that to Waitsfield. And get that answer for you.
We do have the name, so we'll get that for you. I'm going to step a little bit into speculation here just for a moment, but like most internet service providers have the capability of supporting IPv6, even if it's not the default. Most of your connectivity would still go through IPv4, whereas, you know, if you have a DNS provider you've set up or anything like that uses IPv6, you could theoretically leverage it. I can't see a world in which Waitsfield Telecom does not at least support that. Whether it's IPv6 by default is a bit of a different question. I cannot answer that, and we can certainly get that back to you, Chris. So thank you for that question. Next question is, I want to go to Carl, who raised his hand next. Carl, please go ahead and jump in again.
Yeah, one more quick thing about funding. When you're in touch with East Montpelier, I reached out a couple times about providing a loan from our revolving loan fund with the thought that you guys maybe had all this money in the pipeline to you, but needed some cash quickly. And you know, this was months ago. I never heard back. If that is of interest, you can raise that with East Montpelier when you contact us as well.
Thank you, Carl. That's a very interesting offer. At the moment, we have what we need, but that kind of grant anticipation type loan could come in very handy. Thank you.
Yeah, it's about $80,000, I think, that we have in the fund at the moment.
Great, thank you again, Carl. All right, next question. And this is a great one, by the way. Again, from John. Will CVFiber have control of the question of net neutrality, or are we downstream from mainline providers on that issue?
Chuck, why don't you answer that one? Because you have the better technical savvy than I do to respond more fully.
Sure. I'll do my best. Again, this is an area where I'm going to have to dip a little bit into speculation because we just don't have all the details plotted out to this level of detail just yet. I will say this. We are very committed to net neutrality as an organization. We believe in equal access to the public. It is, in fact, our public responsibility to provide equal access to the internet. That said, we are also beholden to the, the upstream providers that we are connecting through. And there could be situations in the future where things are going on that we are not aware of that dip into the realm of net neutrality. Internet connectivity is a very complicated networking situation. There are a lot of different layers to it. If you type in google.com on your internet browser hops through anywhere from 6 to 15 different computers before it reaches a server that is actually owned by Google. And so we will absolutely do our best to maintain net neutrality. We will do our best to maintain privacy. There may be situations that come up in the future that are outside of our control, and as soon as we get abreast of them, we will do our best to resolve them as quickly and as to our public's interests as possible. But it's a complicated situation, and unfortunately, I cannot give a definitive answer at this time. I certainly wish I could. Okay. Oh, and John posted a follow-up. Awesome. Very glad to hear that, and support any efforts in favor of net neutrality to the extent possible. We agree, John, and thank you for your question. That is certainly an important one in this day and age. Next question. Is there a way to access the mapping that you have shown here on the CVFiber website?
Not yet. We will be providing more access as we move through our as we move through our negotiations with contractors, as we move through our plans, and we roll out where we're going next and what our short-term plans are, and moving in towards our longer plans. We have our entire 24 distribution areas mapped out as you see here. But at the moment, we're keeping those close hold because that is important business information right now. And as that becomes less significant business information, we will make that that information more public.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Tracy, for another question. We have once again exhausted the questions, so once again, putting out a last call. If anybody has any further burning questions, we are here for you, and we are here to answer your questions. So please do put it forward if you've got something for us.
Chuck, if there aren't any more questions, I would just like to close by, first of all, thanking my colleagues here at CVFiber for everything that they do for CVFiber. This is a real experiment here. We have something going on that could not be resolved commercially, that is being resolved by a municipal entity. It's an extraordinary amount of work, and it's an extraordinary group of people that are providing this effort. And I also want to extend my thanks to everybody that took the time to show their interest in CVFiber. And I hope we'll be able to find some way that you'll be able to help us pursue this goal. It's a really worthy thing to do. It's so important to Vermont. It's so important to Central Vermont. It's so important to each individual family to have access to high-speed internet in this day and age. I've been saying for a while, it's the equivalent of the electrification of rural America. The internetification of rural America is our new challenge in this day and age. And I'm happy to see that so many people are trying really hard to make this work. Thank you, everybody. And let folks know that this presentation is going to be available on our website as soon as Chuck figures out how to make that work.
We do have one more comment in the chat. Thank you, John. Please keep communicating via Front Porch Forum, etc., to let us know what, if anything, we might be able to do individually to support and expedite the project. And then thanks for this. Please have more info sessions as things progress. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Good night, all.
Good night, and thank you.
And I will stop recording.